So I'm just gonna riff with the camera playing. I actually have two cameras rolling out here. I have my A7 III, and then actually over on this end, I have the Canon M100, which for those of you who are like, oh, I like the quality of the Canon M100 right beside you, Zach, you guys can win this camera. For those of you who are watching this on the 28th. The competition, I think, goes until the end of the month, and that is the end of October. So on Halloween or the day after Halloween, you have 3 more days when this video gets released to win this camera. I'll provide all the links and fun stuff in the description below. But anyway, this is the first time I've kind of done, I'm trying out like some sort of like a podcast type style. Okay, let's begin with sort of this theme that I've had in the back of my mind, and it all kind of stemmed from when we started our trip, started our West Coast part of the trip in Banff, and we were in Lake Louise, and I had sort of like this crazy realization about just taking photos. And like when you travel the world and you travel to different places, whether that's in your backyard actually or to some of the more extravagant type places, you'll see a lot of tourists taking photos. And I found myself, and I'm sure you guys will find yourselves as shooters as well, trying to capture like all these different moments and capture all these things in photo and video and photo and video. But at the end of the day, you don't really know why you're capturing it. But it's beautiful, so you got to capture it. But I mean, if there's no purpose behind that, is there really a reason to get it? So I kind of had this sort of thought pattern when we were at Lake Louise. So I think this is probably the best backdrop I could get. Samia's going crazy over there. She's seeing like rocks being skipped across the water, and she's just going nuts for it. One of the things that I want to bring up and talk to you guys about is this idea of taking and capturing the moment versus being in the moment. One of the biggest regrets I think that a lot of us creators, photographers, at least for me, I can speak on my behalf, is you will go in to one of these beautiful epic locations and want to shoot it, and you spent your entire time in that location behind a camera instead of actually looking at, like actually giving yourself time. And really the only time that you have within that space is just posing for a photograph. So we've taken a lot of time, put away the cameras, and just got a chance to really explore this, I would say, very over-photographed. I mean, I don't think you could over-photograph this. This is amazing. But we took some time just to kind of give to ourselves in this space, and man, it just feels so good to just be absorbed by nature instead of behind the lens of a screen. I think you should figure out your purpose, why you're taking that photograph or taking that video, filming that one thing. And if you can figure that out, if you can figure out like why you're capturing that moment, then take it. But if you can't justify the photograph, then just enjoy the moment until you can figure out a justification. And so this has been stewing on my brain since then, and I've sort of added a bit of an initiative to myself, and I would say this for you guys as well. Like I said in the video, if you guys are looking to shoot with purpose and fulfillment, I highly, highly, highly recommend consider what you're filming and what you're filming it for, rather than just filming it or taking photos of it. If there's no purpose, if there's no reason, motive, initiative, impact, just don't do it. So that's been something that's been stewing in a lot of in my head, and I'm sure from that point you're probably thinking like, man, like, well then what do I do? I'm at this location, I'm trying to capture these photographs, and I don't know what I want to make it for. I don't know what my motive is yet. Speaking on the editor's perspective, there's been a lot of stories that I've assembled in post, or I've captured some really beautiful imagery. But what I'll do, and I actually did this the other day and I want to share it with you, is I went for a hike. Actually, I spent a whole day without touching my camera. I told myself that I'm going to leave my bag and leave my phone and camera at home, and I'm just going to go for a hike. I'm just going to enjoy nature. And this was like one of the most beautiful hikes I've been on in forever. And the craziest thing happened. Instead of me obsessing over wanting to capture every single angle and look up at this tree and get this thing and left, right, center, forward, and just capture the crap out of everything and clicking the shutter and clicking the record button like 1,000 times, I actually experienced the place. And what happens is, to your brain, at least this is what happened to me, is I started to think about more creative decisions rather than just capturing within the moment. Because if you just go to a place with your camera and you start filming it, you're going to do these sort of typical shots. You're going to do the, oh, this camera's brushing by this tree. I'm going to follow behind this person. I'll shoot this at 60 frames. I'll shoot this at 120. Ooh, I'm getting a little crazy shooting at 24 frames. And that's probably the pattern that you'll go through. But if you don't bring your camera, you leave it at home, you leave it just in its bag, or you leave it in the car, and you just go experience something just for a day. You don't have to do this for your whole trip. You can even go back to this place. What happens is you let your brain kind of roll freely. It sort of has its sort of creative juices rolling. And I mean, if you guys are creative, you'll totally understand what I mean. But what happens is you start to cycle new ideas. You start thinking about brand new things in these locations. And all of a sudden, instead of thinking about just the regular cameras pushing past this tree or whatever, you can start like assembling a story. You think of a character maybe here, or you think of a different camera movement that you wouldn't necessarily do just handheld right there on the fly. And the big thing to realize is procrastination obviously is terrible, but you are not procrastinating to shoot. You're actually allowing yourself to gain new knowledge to implement into better shots. Because at the end of the day, if you're just capturing the same style shots over and over and over again, does that really give you a lot of freedom in the edit to make anything new? So that's been something that I've really thought about quite a bit. And I had this other scenario when we were in this beautiful place on the East Coast, Grosse Morne area. And what I loved about it was the fact that I went on this hike and I thought, I'm just going to bring my phone, go for this hike. And the craziest thing happened was on my hike up to the spot, I saw the beauty of it. I saw how amazing it looked. And it was just this rich, beautifully textured location. And immediately, I had to run back to the car to go get my camera because I'm like, I need my camera. I need to get the shots. And it was at that point that I realized the importance of my gear. I actually didn't have it all on me. And as soon as I was able to give my brain some digestion time of the location, I was able to start thinking creatively. I was able to start thinking freely. And this is something I really, really recommend you guys do. Even if you go for like an hour hike and then you go back and grab your camera, at least give yourself some creative freedom. And I actually learned to train this muscle, not traveling across Canada on this trip, but actually when I make movies. When you become, if you're working within the film industry, you guys will totally know, even if you just watch movies, there's multiple department heads, right? You have the director, you have the cinematographer, the production designer. And when I started making movies, I did a little bit of everything. The fridge is on and it's making a loud noise, but I did a little bit of everything. I did cinematography, production design, basically anything that needed to be done. I wore those hats. And what happened was I burned myself out on a lot of shoots. I would just like get so tired and overly exhausted creatively that by the end of the day, I just couldn't really think beyond what I should get. I didn't even know what I should get. I just started filming stuff. And if you watch the progression of some of my early films, you'll kind of see them taper off quality-wise because I was just super overwhelmed on set. Now, when I started working on bigger films, I would have a cinematographer, I would have a production designer, I would have people for these jobs. And the beautiful thing was when I got on set, I didn't have to think about setting up a camera. I didn't have to think about setting this one thing up. Yes, I love being hands-on and getting involved, but I actually got to be creative within the space. I was able to give myself 10, 20 minutes, and sometimes I get to set 2 hours early, and my brain just started thinking and digesting that creativity. So I would recommend you guys doing that sort of process on your own trips. I know you probably cannot have a cinematographer, nor do you need one when you do your travel videos or whatever, but give yourself process time. Give yourself digestion time. Look at that place. Maybe write it down in a journal. So that was sort of a thing that I wanted to share with you is if you have no purpose to capture a location, but you want to capture it, give yourself time to think about it. And if you still have no reason to capture it, then just leave it as a good moment. Good moments are allowed to exist without being captured. Okay, and so the theme of this video is sort of talking about when to capture things, why you should capture them. And I do want to riff off that just a little bit more because I have gained a lot of, I'd say, insight on capturing for this trip. When I went on it, I actually had a couple movie ideas in mind. I'm like, okay, I want to do a film about this, film about that, film about that. And kind of going back to sort of my traditional filmmaking roots, one of the things that I stewed on was I just wrote a couple scripts out, a couple monologues. And what the power of having some sort of prep does is it allows you to translate that when you're holding your camera. and it allows you to change the flavor up. And you're influencing yourself for the content that you're going to create. So, for instance, I wrote this motivational type speech, and I really didn't know what the footage I wanted to capture for it, but I knew on my trip I was going to be able to capture something that would work for that. So then moving forward, when I got to Tofino, I went on this sort of hike and I started knowing exactly what I needed for that footage and for that monologue and that script. And so I just captured that from there. So you can always think ahead, plan ahead, write some scripts out beforehand. But again, keep that stuff in mind before arriving. Anyways, guys, that was just sort of a thought pattern that I had in my brain. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and hopefully it provides some sort of value for you. I really just want to do a bit of a catch-up and just talk about stuff, talk about the creations that I'm working on. It is the end of our cross-country Canada trip, which feels really good just to sort of buckle down and sit down in one place for a couple days. Like, seriously, decompression is so important when it comes to basically any sort of overload. And I will share this with you, is the fact that, like, anybody who you watch who has like these really crazy lives online and like travels the world and does all this really cool stuff in slow motion and around really epic locations, like, they burn out for sure. And anytime that they're editing, they're not in those epic locations exploring. They're sitting in front of their computer working. And I am currently doing that, and it feels great. I love editing so much, so I'm just enjoying going through this footage, and it's really relaxing and super rewarding. And for those of you who are curious, I am working on a video right now that I'll probably publish very soon. I'm really excited about it. And it's just like accumulation of thoughts and experiences and footage. So hopefully you enjoy that. Anyway, for those of you who have not yet, I'd love to get your support, your subscription. You guys can subscribe to my YouTube page. It would really mean a whole heck of a lot. And just share this with your friends, your pals, any sort of filmmaking friends that you have. I'd love for this word to be spread. And if you guys do have any questions or comments, write that in the comment section below. I always love reading your comments, even though I don't get a chance to respond to all of them. I really do love hearing your thoughts. So thank you so much. I'll chat with you guys later, and hopefully this helped you out. Anyway, goodbye.